Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to Equestria Inspired. Today we're here with special guests d.notive
Hello there.
and zahqo.
Hi.
First off, we're going to start off with a couple, general questions for you guys tonight. We're going to start with d.notive because he's first on my Skype list here.
Well, it's alphabetical. It has nothing to do with who's the better producer because then you start with zahqo.
That's not true.
Completely. You never guess we have a rapport or anything.
Alrighty, so first question, Mr. d.notive, is where exactly are you from?
I am just outside of downtown Minneapolis in Minnesota, the self-proclaimed city of funk, which is delicious, and it's very cold here.
Well, I'm originally from Phoenix, Arizona, and then I didn't really go that far. So now I'm in Scottsdale, if you happen to know where that is, just outside of Phoenix. But yeah, not much to say. It's the valley. It's really hot in the summers.
Alrighty,
Anyway.
Next question is,
All right.
Mr. d.notive, what exactly, in your own words, do you do?
Let's see. I graduated class 2009 with a college degree in communications, which is basically just a license. Oh, I can't say that. A license to BS. And I ended up getting a job as a production assistant. And don't get me wrong, having a job is one of many things that I do, but it's not. It doesn't define me. So it's just how.
It's just what pays for the pony bills.
Exactly, and it doesn't suck. I get to write about cars all day. So for like the 10 of you who are following my Tumblr and you wonder why I just do nothing but reblog cars, that's why. It's because cars are my life. I love cars, so I get to talk about that. And other than that, I'm not doing a whole lot else with my life other than I'm buying a house. It's something I'm trying to do anyway. But production, and I make music in my basement. So
It's the only place to do pony stuff is in the basement.
that's not true at all. I do pony stuff at work sometimes, but when no one's looking.
What do I do? I guess in my personal time, right now I'm not doing a whole lot. Like I got my own place in this apartment recently, and I have a bunch of music equipment just lying around that I didn't really know what to do with. So during the day, I have a full-time job where I sell like water softeners, or I work customer service for a company that sells water softeners and stuff like that. Now I'm getting back into the whole music thing. I guess I'd say that's what I do. I mean, other than that, I do like web design sort of independently, or graphic production, and I've been trying to do something professionally in that. But I mean, trying to start like a game journalism thing on the side because I like to write in my free time. But I haven't done a whole lot with those things until I got completely distracted with this. So now I'm kind of back with it with the music thing, and so I spend a lot of my free time whenever I have it, which isn't much. I don't release songs very often. I kind of just play around with that stuff. So
Multifaceted pony.
Well, you're also, if I may say so, Sean, you're also a perfectionist. You can spend 3 weeks on something and not get bored with it. I don't know how you do.
That's the problem, is I have to balance perfectionism with, there is sort of like a time where I will get bored with it and then it will never get done, but I am that. So unfortunately, because of my full-time job, I don't get to spend many hours on one given project, and I spend a lot of hours on a given project, so they take a while to come out.
In consideration with your music making, d.notive, how long have you been doing your mixing and music and such?
Well, it depends on how far back you want to go. If you want to talk about how long I've been musically inclined and just sort of like pressing keys on instruments, and by instruments I mean pianos, then I've been doing that since I was a kid, since I was like 5 years old. I think I didn't start getting an interest in mixing or recording till I was like maybe 11, and even then I didn't have the means to pull it off. My parents, I'm a fourth generation musician, I guess. My parents had a MIDI studio in the 80s and in the early 90s in our basement, actually in pretty much the same spot where I'm at right now, but they got rid of that when I was maybe 7 years old, so that was never really at my disposal. A couple of remnants of the gear remain, but nothing really useful to me except an old Spring Reverb mixer, which I still have sitting down here somewhere. Haven't used it for anything yet, but I still got it. But I didn't get into like sort of the stuff that is practically applicable to what I'm doing now until I was maybe 16 or so, which I guess, now is 9 years ago. That's when I got my first MIDI keyboard and my first sequencer, which was Cakewalk 8, real old school stuff, and started just kind of messing around and discovered quantizing, which is great. And it kind of blossomed from there. Then I took a nice long hiatus when I went into college, and I've sort of been off and on every couple of years for the last, 9 years or so. That's basically it. I mean, my style's changed a lot. I really had in my head for a long time I was going to do video game music. And then I wanted to do pop music. Then I wanted to do video game music because I realized I just thought that nothing I was doing would ever be poppy enough. Nothing I was doing would ever sound like what was on the radio or anything that would get me anywhere or sound good. But video game music maybe had potential. And then I obviously didn't end up doing that. But I might be leading us into another question. So I'm just going to kind of resign and put that in. I'm going to stick a pin in that. Just kind of stick it up. We'll come back to that later.
My story's kind of similar. Actually, I like this question particularly because I can talk a bit about that. I've done it for a while. I grew up with, my mom was kind of tone deaf, but my dad was super, super into music. So I got subjected to it heavily when I was young. The only problem is, I won't go in. I guess it's like the way he was kind of overbearing about it. Maybe I didn't appreciate it as much as I could have, and I probably could have been a lot better now. But it's laid a foundation sort of in my mind on how to do things, and so writing music isn't so hard. And I guess it started 10 years ago. You can probably find something on the internet. I won't tell people how to find it. They won't, unless they happen to know whatever other screen name that it went under on some obscure website that no one ever goes to anyway. There's something of mine on there, and it was really bad. And that was also back when I used to make music on trackers, like things like Mod Plug, going back further, Fast Tracker 2, I think I started with. And those were really fun because a lot of games back in the 90s used a lot of those formats. So I play games that had those, and I wanted to figure out how to make them. So that's how I got my start, kind of getting back into writing music. And then I have since, I think, 2005. Well, okay, going back even further, my first DAW was Cakewalk, or some really old form of it that came on a million floppy disks.
Yeah.
And I actually remember, and I was super young, and I went to I don't know, it was probably at a Guitar Center or someplace like that. I don't know if that was around back then. And a guy was doing a presentation of Cakewalk. My dad was super into that, so he picked it up right away, and I had it at home, and I kind of messed around with that. And I think there was even a program they used that's even older than that. I can't remember what, but it's for, if you remember Amiga computers, those super computers.
MasterFX Pro, I bet, is what it was.
I couldn't even tell you. That was before my memory, and I remember emulating. I would emulate songs, and every 5 seconds I'd make something. And I'd go downstairs and tell whoever was interested, which was usually nobody, but my brother's friend I think was there. So I'd always harass him. Hey, check this out! Look at this thing I made. He'd always come up and just be like, "Wow, you made that! Holy crap!" So those were good memories. Going to today, I think the first modern DAW I ended up using was FL Studio. Like many people, it was accessible and it was cheap, and it had free updates. And I didn't have the resources to go and drop $600 on Pro Tools or something like that. And I didn't. Anyway, so I messed around with that for a long time, and now come to today. I actually, I had also ambitions to do music for video games. I'd hang around a website called ModDB for a real long time, actually, since 2003 to 2008 or something ridiculous. And I just hang around with modders, and I couldn't really make games, but I ended up making a few songs for a few mods, and then I was about ready to drop music altogether. I hadn't done it. Well, I'd made some crappy songs that weren't real structured. They weren't finished. They sounded pretty good, whatever I had, but not really good enough. I hadn't really found myself in music. And now, come to today, this community, I saw people making songs and stuff, and I was just yeah, okay. And yeah, that's kind of how I got here. I really hope that there wasn't multiple questions in this thing. I mean, that's my story.
No, that's actually totally fine.
Okay, I'll elaborate more on whatever questions relating to music as they come up. But
actually, that helps me lead into another question. Is that you guys? It sounds like both of you said that you were kind of giving up hopes and kind of ready to lay down music and stuff until you guys kind of found Brony and kind of saw how good this community is and how supportive they are, and that it sounds like for the both of you that kind of gave you that new inspiration. To kind of go back and take it up again?
Yep,
that's accurate.
completely accurate.
Awesome. That's I'm actually kind of the same way when it came to my website. I love so many things. I love, video game music and all of this stuff, and I've always figured that I'd want to be a talk show host or something. And I've always wanted to try it, but I'm all like, video games. So many people do that. It's already been done. Like I just never had it. And then I found ponies, and I'm like, oh my god, I have to do this.
Well, it wasn't even that. It was just sort of like, well, I'll tell you what happened to me is in college, we're talking like 2006, 2007, I joined forces with this other guy who was a vocalist and also a songwriter. And he, to be perfectly honest, he was kind of full of himself, but there were a few rare moments of like humility when he was like kind of inebriated or whatever. He'd be like, man, people give you a lot of crap, but you're pretty good, man. I don't even know how you pull these chord progressions out of thin air, man. You're just like you just keep on doing what you do, man. And I was like, oh well, thank you, So he and I formed a partnership real briefly for like I'd say about a year and a half. We called ourselves Suspector, and it was really epic electro. It's actually interesting because I can go back and listen to what we were doing then, and it still sounds pretty contemporary to me with a few minor adjustments. It's very, very what you consider electro now, I guess. But what happened then is after a while, we got to this point where I wrote this really, really great pop song, which I should actually share with the community at some point. I still think it's a pretty good song, even though I'm not going to ever release it on anything. And after that point, he didn't want to work on anything that didn't sound top 40 material. He didn't want to work on anything that I was doing because I'm also really big into EBM. I like industrial, like future pop, epic trance. So I have a lot of darker inclinations as far as writing is concerned. And I was writing a whole bunch of great stuff that was really, really dark. And he's like, I don't want to work on this. This isn't going to go anywhere.
Oh, creative differences.
Oh, absolutely. Like it was never an issue up until I wrote that one song. After I wrote like the song that all our friends really liked and was like, it sounded like an electro version of The Killers, like something really, really poppy. After that point, he's just like, no, man, write more of this. Like, I don't want to work on this like industrial stuff. And so then I started singing my own stuff. I got rid of him, and I was actually really pleased with what I was doing. Even though I wasn't doing anything technically sophisticated, I just had a couple of keyboards and a sequencer, no VSTs, no effects, nothing. And I thought that I was really going to try and maybe start pursuing this on some level. And I started doing a voiceover job. After about 3 weeks doing voiceovers, I completely ruined my voice. And then my acid reflux ensured that I didn't get it back for a very long time. There was a period when I could barely talk for, I'd say, about 6 or 7 months.
Ouch.
Let alone sing. And I really honestly thought I was never going to sing again.
That would terrify me, honestly.
So, as you might imagine, during that period, I couldn't even fathom using my keyboards. I couldn't look at them, much less even fathom using them, because it was just like heart rate.
Period of mourning.
Oh, absolutely. I was so upset. I mean, and it wasn't even. And it was compounded by the fact that because I had a voiceover job and I'd lost my voice, I was worried I was going to lose my job, and there was I had no creative outlets. It was a frustrating period. So then this last year or so, it's been a lot better because I've been, I made some changes to my diet, some different habits, changing a few different things to try and help me take care of it a little bit better. And it's not where it was. It's not as good as it was. Actually, some people think that my timbre sounds better now. It's a little raspier. A little more worn in, I guess, even though it gets fatigued very easily still. But I don't know. All of a sudden, I joined My Little Remix, and because I discovered that there are a lot of people out there doing some really cool stuff, and I kind of wanted to, if nothing else, I knew I still wanted to be a producer, and I was still writing material, but I wasn't singing anything. I was still writing material starting kind of I guess last year, but I wasn't singing any of it. And it's only a couple things here or there because, I was like, it could be fun. And then all the people I wanted to work with who were vocalists are just absolute flakes. Who just wouldn't show up, or they wouldn't commit to coming over at a specific time. And it's just sort of whatever, So My Little Remix happened, and then I did a track, and people started calling me the 80s guy. And I was like, oh, I did After Hours with Rarity. It's my first pony track ever.
Oh, that's your first one?
That's my first one.
I actually just heard that for the very first time today, and I was listening to that, and I was getting I gotta say, every time I listen to that song, I'm thinking of Top Gun. I don't know why. But it sounds...
If Tarby's gonna listen to this and go, yes,
it totally sounds like one of those scenes where they're just taking off and they're about to go do this huge dog fight. So it's not the fight song, but it's that build up, awesome, because it sounds all flighty, like you're soaring through the air. And I was listening to that, I'm like, wow, this. Out of everything that I could think of, Top Gun just boom came in there, and I'm like, what? Yeah, that works.
You know, what's funny is I just saw Top Gun for the first time ever like 2 weeks ago. I'm not even joking.
Wow.
It's a good movie.
Yeah, it is. It's a great. I was like 5 minutes into it. I'm like, this is the most amazing.
I haven't seen that movie in like a decade.
Oh, you hipster. Yeah, okay. Yeah, all right. That's not really like a decade.
Well, that's not what that was supposed to sound like.
Oh, anyway. I'll just wrap this up by saying after I did that, people were calling me the 80s guy after one song. And I'm like, well, this isn't going to work. So for the next Toast Spirit, there was sort of a challenge that got issued. So I did Pony Fantasy after that, which was my first time singing on a track to be released in like 2 or 3 years. So like I was really, really apprehensive about it. Like I was like, I'm sorry guys. And on top of that, this is before I had a proper pitch corrector. So like my post-processing completely just muddled everything. The thing is having wrecked my voice gave me really exaggerated my vibrato, and pitch correctors don't like vibrato very much, so it got exaggerated worse, and so I thought it sounded like crap, but apparently people like it, so I'm just like, oh all right, I guess maybe I should try this whole vocal thing more often. I don't know. So thanks.
Hey, if people like it, I guess I'll give it to them.
I guess apparently I don't suck, so which was surprising for me after having not been able to sing for like 2 years. So I'm hoping. I feel like the more I do it, the stronger my voice becomes. But we'll see.
It's certainly motivating, I can imagine.
Yeah, it's definitely sort of like I feel like I have odds to rise against. So I mean, anyway, I've taken a really long time answering this little talking point, but
it's wonderful.
It's kind of a long story about how not necessarily the ponies themselves were the inspiration. I wasn't thinking in my head like, Pinkie Pie's No Fear song, even though it definitely applies. It was more of this want to blow people's minds, I guess. I don't know, just sort of like
I must create.
I must rise above what people have told me that I am. I must rise above what I've told myself that I am and challenge myself somehow. I don't know. So
was Pony Fantasy a step in a different direction, something you're not used to?
Absolutely. I didn't even use a sequencer for that. That's all. Everything in the version that's on YouTube right now and on my SoundCloud, that is all played in live. I only used a metronome to keep time. Everything else was just all done with me keeping time. No sequencing, no quantizing.
Yeah, it's very nice. I like the style. It's a very, very homely, very nice, kind of gentle song about such a very strong, passionate. You really want something, and you know that you can never really have it. It's really. It's half of it's kind of like a downer, but at the same side, it's still really beautiful. And like normally, I don't listen to sad kind of songs, but that's really good.
I will probably cry if I ever perform it. I'll probably end the performance of that song with like a little tear in my eye. It's just It's very personal.
On another note, though, real quick to wrap things up for this question for d.notive here. Yes, there's more. It's another big thing that we want to touch on is as you said that that song was you were heavily emotionally invested in that song. It was very, very special to you, very personal to you, and that I don't know about you, but for me, when I watch something, I get very emotionally invested in things. I love putting myself in the place of what I'm watching, whether it's movies or cartoons, and I will admit that I can be a pretty big sap when it comes to ponies, and I'll be the first person to admit that when Rainbow Dash did her first Sonic Rainboom, I cried right there. Boom! That was one of the most beautiful things I've seen in forever, because the culmination and the fact that it was to save the life of her friend, despite how cheesy that sounds. It was just, that's pretty far. The saving the life of a falling friend is kind of. It's about as dark and as scary as they can go for a kids' TV show, and that was really cool.
While doing a maneuver that had not 100% chance of success, so it's very intense.
Yes, exactly. Like it's probably not going to work, but you're trying anyway because it's for somebody that you care for very much. It was, oh my gosh, the culmination, the build up for that entire episode was amazing, and so it's really nice to see that people aren't afraid to utilize such emotion for their songs and put themselves out there. And it's nice that people make songs to be cool, and people make really awesome dance songs and stuff, and it's just it's very nice to see a lot of artists getting emotional and putting themselves into a, something that a lot of people aren't really ready to put themselves out there as, kind of like showing a more vulnerable side of themselves. And I heard that song, and I was very happy that you did that, because I'm exactly the same way. If I wrote a song like that, I'd probably cry my eyes out.
Well, it's someone actually made this comment to me not too long ago. They said they told me that the thing that apparently, this is me quoting. This isn't me being full of myself now. That apparently sets my work apart is that it's all got heart to it. It's even like the dance stuff, like the electronic stuff. It's all got a certain soulfulness to it, which. For me, it's a second nature, because that's just everything I listen to is that way, But
Right.
I guess some people find it really refreshing, and I'm
Yes, it shows. It is good. People
happy
people
I know
don't
it.
make music for a job. It's not something to do it. You do it and you put your essence into it. It does stick out. Like I I found your work, your collaboration song Hand for Hoof. And because I was listening to stuff, and I was like, hey, I saw this fanfic, and I was going through stuff to, for my top fives list for our website, and I'm just like, oh, well, this song's going to be top 5, this song's going to be number 1, this one's number 2, this number, definitely can't forget this one, of course. And I stumble upon this fanfic, and I'm reading it, and I'm like, this is cool, and somebody posts a link to your song, and I hear that song, and I'm just all like, oh my god.
Well, let me ask: was it a Conversion Bureau fanfic?
Yes.
And do you remember who wrote it?
I don't actually. I can't think of the name.
Because we actually had someone message us. She writes a lot of Conversion Bureau fanfics. I think almost exclusively.
Wow, really?
And she's a lot of them. And she wrote. I mean, the thing is, like, I read like the first Conversion Bureau. I'm not a big fanfic reader.
Yeah, me neither.
And I don't think, Sean, you're not a big fanfic reader either, are you?
No, and in fact, this was a concept that I wasn't even really introduced to when we started writing it. It's important to note that the story behind the song lyrically and everything else was sort of on, d.notive side. Because I don't, that's the thing, I'm pretty exclusive to music. I don't read a lot of fanfics either. I kind of wish I did, because I write, or at least I used to. Like everything else, but I just haven't had time, I guess, or I haven't seen anything that's particularly drawn me in. I'm sure there's some really good stuff out there, and maybe somebody will just have to point me to something I should read. And
well, apparently, My Little Dash becomes highly recommended.
Oh yeah, I hear that all everywhere, and I do my best to. Okay, I don't do my best to avoid fanfic, but I'm currently working on one that's probably not ever going to get anywhere. But I put my heart and soul into it, so I hope my friends will appreciate it at least. And I avoid reading other fanfics because I don't want to, feel any influence from someone else's stuff. I read something and I go, oh no, I want to do that, and then that somehow influences my writing, and I don't want to. It's kind of like why people at Hasbro. Yeah, it's why people at Hasbro can't really read fanfics, because that might change things that should not be influenced.
You're saying that might influence the show? I haven't seen that at all.
Yeah, yeah. Oh no.
Well, going back just real quick to let me just wrap this up so if someone's listening and trying to follow my train of thought on this.
Yeah.
there was a woman who sent us a message, and she actually asked if she could use Hand for Hoof as sort of the bookends for audio readings of her Conversion Bureau fanfics.
Oh, I heard an audio reading. Is that her?
Possibly. It was if our song was at the beginning and the end of an audio reading of the fanfic, then yeah, that's her.
I think that might have been her. That's really cool. It's funny how she does all the different voices.
But then again, if it wasn't a Conversion Bureau fanfic, then it probably wasn't.
It was. I think I've only heard one.
Okay.
I didn't know
so,
there
yeah.
were several.
That's
cool.
She was just like, "Hey, your song would fit perfectly." And I think that this should be the unofficial theme song or of every Conversion Bureau fanfic. And that's kind of thinking like, well, all right. I mean, lyrically, I wasn't trying to explicitly reference Conversion Bureau. It was just sort of like I had just read Conversion Bureau, and the concept that Conversion Bureau draws on was something that I'd already been thinking in my head before I even read the fanfic, before I knew it existed.
Oh,
it's
yeah. If you had the chance to do that, then
yeah, it's like, would you?
Yeah.
That's not, and I think that shouldn't be a really alien concept for anyone who's like into the fandom. Like we've all wondered, like, what if, what if I had that, would I really do it? And the song never actually answers the question. It never gives you a decision. It just gives you all the implications of each.
Yeah, it's always a very good back and forth.
Yeah, I think I told Sean like let's have a call and answer thing. And he's like, what?
Oh, those are my favorite. I love call and answer songs. They're super awesome.
I'm talking.
They're very personal. I like that.
I'm talking too much.
We plays ourselves
Make Sean talk more.
Can we talk about the picture?
Yeah, talk about the picture. He did the picture.
Oh, definitely.
God.
I loved that picture.
I spent
I still send
all night on it, and I worked that day, and that really sucked. But I was trying to reach, because I am a bit of a graphic designer, and I find that when you make a song for YouTube, it's important to have some sort of album art
The
that
correct picture
attracts.
behind it. Yeah.
It attracts attention, and it looks like it's more polished and that you put a lot of time into it. So I wanted to do something really cool, and of course I'm really into that weird industrial or cyberpunkish type of stuff. So
Kind of matrixy.
yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I kind of cooked up something that, a little techno-y, I guess. And I was trying to reach for ideas because I kind of came up with this crazy idea. Okay, let's have this arm that's turning into a thing, this hoof. But I popped open Illustrator, and I was going to make an arm. No matter what I did, I couldn't get it to look right. I couldn't get the colors or things to match up right where it looked good. So I had a crazy idea to take a picture of my arm. So that arm in that picture is mine.
Oh, wow. Well, there you have it. Now every pony knows that everyone has seen zahqo's arm.
It's just a really weird. It was like 2 a.m, and I'm like hanging up a curtain, like some sort of solid color background to take a picture of my arm. It's a lot of fun doing that.
I imagine.
It fits with the song too because we're trying to convince him he should be a pony, and he's like, "Oh God, oh God, oh God," and then his arm.
Yeah, it's fitting.
Really good picture. Very cool. Hope to see more of your art.
I really liked working on that song, I guess, too, because I feel like I have a certain skill set, and d.notive has a certain skill set, and I feel like I don't make songs quickly, but we made that song in
3 days, maybe 2
days.
and a half.
Something. Well, yeah, it would be that. Like if you consider that we work during the day, and when we got home, we are just like, okay, because this was actually originally a toast beard.
Yep. Well, first of all, are you familiar with what a toast beard is? Dry.
No, actually.
Okay. So real briefly, mylittlерemix.com, which is sort of the hub for the Brony musicians. Every week, there's an IRC. We have an IRC channel. Every week, this guy named Sai and the other mods for the My Little Remix IRC, they have a themed challenge that runs every week where you get 6 days to either respond to the last episode or you have to respond to the theme if you want to participate. And so it's fun because it gives you limitations to work within. And the theme that week was collaboration. It was teamwork. So it is sort of tacitly telling everyone, go partner up with somebody and make something. So I'd never done collaboration before. I don't know if Sean had either, but that's why we did it so quickly, because I think because that was the same week. That was the week I did my Becoming Popular remix too. That was that.
Yeah. So you were like both number 1 and whatever the other one placed.
Number 4. I think what had happened is I finished.
Well, it was number 2, I think, because I think the top 3 tied.
Yeah, the top 3 did tie. It was because Art Attack, me, and I don't remember. Probably Tombstone. I think was. No, he was. Yeah, he was. It was Tombstone number 1 with us too. It was 3 Becoming Popular remix. This is all I remember.
Oh yeah, wait, Tombstone.
See number 2.
I can't remember.
Anyway, so
yeah.
the theme. It was a themed challenge. You could either respond to the episode or do teamwork, or you can have up to 2 entries every week. And I finished my Becoming Popular remix that Tuesday, and on Wednesday I was like, hey, Sean, let's I know it's kind of a late notice for you, but you want to try and whip something up together for Saturday?
Right, and we had talked about this before. Like, this wasn't really a sudden thing or surprise, really, because I think when we both first met, and gee, why don't we just get into that? We both sort of met in the IRC. I guess we were both kind of like trying to get into it. I do clearly remember we were talking about future pop.
Yep.
So we already knew that. I guess we had similar styles, and then both of our, we released our songs, our hit ones.
Yes.
And they, about within the same week, they were both up on Equestria Daily, and that brought so many hits.
Mm-hmm.
And so Fast Friends.
Barely.
And then,
then we ended up in Skype chats together.
Yeah, and then among many other people, where it's just like, whoa, okay.
Look at these 2 guys. It's like, I remember I was like, you know what I really love is VNV Nation. Like, I love VNV Nation. I was like, oh my God, do you listen to Neurotic Fish too? You're like, I love Neurotic Fish. Did you hear this song? I'm like, yeah, dude, I love that song. What about Assemblage 23?
What's funny, before that, I listened to those songs, I didn't really know future pop that well as being a genre, to be perfectly honest, because I was kind of God, I can't remember when I started listening to these songs. They started cropping up on something like Pandora or something, and then I started just like finding more and more of these bands. But I never really saw the genre that was attached to them, I guess. So, like, in future pop is not a very it's not a very big name. It's like a branch of a genre.
Yeah, well, it's like
which follows a lot of like synth pop type stuff, but.
Well, it's kind of like trance and EBM and industrial all sort of like got together and had a baby, and then it became pop.
So yeah, that was really cool. I don't know where to go from there, but
we were talking about how that song came together in like 3 or 4 days because we didn't.
Okay, yeah, right. So,
and then John just spent days just like tweaking the mix. Be like, check out this effect I threw in here.
Oh my god, I got so ridiculously anal about it too. I'm glad that you kind of like told me, like, it's fine. We don't need to do that.
I know. He'd still be working on it if I hadn't told him to stop.
That song would have never came out.
It would have never come out. I was like, all right. To a certain extent, yes. There are still imperfections about it, but it's just sort of like, to quote, there's a quote that I like to use. You say real artists ship. And, to in the extent that at some point you got to draw the line between perfection and just getting it out there. Because you can be, it can be as perfect as you want, but if nobody hears it, there's no point.
Exactly. Do you guys think that maybe after a couple more collaborations or something else, do you think that you might in the future clean it up per se? Maybe release the famous remastered version of it?
I would hope so. I think all of my stuff and I know Dino's already kind of wanted to do that. I would love to just kind of go back and take everything that and go back and just take everything that I've learned, because I've been learning as I've been doing this. And you take my stuff like 6 months ago, it's a very clear difference in terms of now I know a lot more, and I've gotten a better ear for like frequencies and things like that, and cleaning up tracks. So yeah, I'd love to go back and just remaster everything.
Well, I'd like to take this moment to give a big shout out to a great guy who's on our forums who doesn't get enough credit on his own. His name is HMageD. He's a professional audio engineer, and he's just always willing to like give someone a little extra advice or like listen to something you're working on to give you tips on how you can make it sound better. And I learned so much about mastering just by like picking his brain a little tiny bit, and like because I've been working on remastering all my stuff up till now and combining it with some new things I haven't released yet that I'm still working on to make an album at some point, hopefully before March, or before April, I should say. So, and I picked his brain the entire way through, and so the results have been great. Yeah, yes, on remastering, and shout out to a great guy.
Sweet.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Hey, man, gotta give credit where credit's due.
Absolutely. I'd be lost without him,
Awesome. Well, thank you. I can't remember the name already.
HMageD. He's a cool bro.
HMageD. All right. Well, thank you, HMageD, for helping this guy grow up to be super awesome and making super awesome music.
He's great. He's on I have him favorited on my YouTube channel. He's on my list of cool bros. Check him out.
Straight from the horse's mouth.
Literally. No pony pun intended.
All right. And you're talking about, places that are good for musicians and artists to go to. Do you have several websites that you frequent a lot, or maybe more? Do you have any suggestions for other potential pony musicians that might want to get a start, for like informational sources they should go to for pony related things that they might find some help on, or a good place to get their name out?
I would say to get there. Well, I mean, it's to get help, and to be honest, I haven't been actively going to My Little Remix. I'd say that's probably a good start. Since, to my knowledge, that's the definitive website. Otherwise, to get your name out there,
yeah, a lot of great people there. I send all budding musicians I know to mylittlremix.com.
Best publicity tool out there is YouTube, though.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Well, YouTube in conjunction with EQD. If you make it to EQD and you're on YouTube, you're golden.
That helps a lot.
That's what I hear from everyone.
It's really funny too, because like and I didn't really know much about YouTube when I started posting stuff up there. Like, because I had made a SoundCloud first, and I posted some stuff up there, and I'm like, yeah, this is getting some hits somewhere. but most of it was from because I was linking it on my little remix as well. Also, I guess I'm going to give a shout out to Makan.
Oh, yeah.
That's MAKKON. He, to my knowledge, along with PH Pony and Pinkie Pie Swear, they all started that website as kind of like a haven for musicians to kind of like show up and do stuff. So that's really cool they did that. That's been a huge motivation.
I want to say Not a Clever Pony was involved in there somewhere too.
Probably, yeah.
You're talking to the wrong people as far as the founding of the founding website, because we're latecomers as far as that's concerned. You'd have to go back to someone who was around in like June or July to know about how it all came together. I didn't start showing up till October, so I mean, we're not. And I think zahqo was about the same time. I think actually, if you look in the introduction thread, you're like a page after me, like not even like a week after.
I didn't even notice.
Yeah, that's how I remember your name. I was like, oh, that guy. At first, it's like, oh, that cool. You were like a week after me. That's someone I remember because people got excited when you said you were like into like chill electronic music and like EBM, and I'm like, and everyone's like, oh man, that's so cool. I'm like, but I just said I was into EBM and nobody cared.
Well, I didn't say EBM. I said chill out. I think chill out's
that's what it was. Robochi
more common phrase these days.
Yeah, Robochi was like, oh yeah, chill out.
And ever since, Robochi has been like my biggest fan.
Oh, he's everybody's biggest fan. I love that. I love that guy. I love him to death.
Upbeat guy.
He's great. Actually, and going back to the question, to anyone just starting out, if you have an opportunity, pick up just a copy of like Future Music Magazine or Computer Music Magazine. It's expensive, but it's a great magazine. And even though the language is probably, if you're not familiar with anything, going to be over your head, probably some of it, but if nothing else, it comes with a DVD of free software every issue, either stuff that's on the internet or stuff exclusive just for them that's free, including a really bare bones sort of music editing software and a few other demos you can try out. And I've got every now and then I just go and pick up a copy and grab the DVD that comes with it. And I got this great VST that I still help distribute because it's free, called Genesis, which I just swear by. It's fantastic. And the new one they're giving out is called Tyrrell Nexus 6, which is another great VST. It's great stuff. So that's a good place to start as well. If you're looking just kind of for some free stuff to get you started. The magazine itself is like $17 or $18, but all the stuff that comes with it makes it worth it, including a lot of the information and promotional stuff in the magazine itself. So that's not me being a salesperson. I don't even work for them. I used to subscribe.
You're just hoping they'll give you magazines for free.
No. I could go buy one. I'm saying, it's one of those things people don't really talk about much. Like, the magazines like that are great, especially when they give you free software. They can really help you out if you're just starting out.
Yeah,
definitely.
Free is always good.
Yeah, absolutely. There's tons and tons of free software out there. You just have to know where to look.
Yeah, and do lots of Googling too. Just any sound that you want to achieve, there's probably a tutorial. So.
Yep, on YouTube especially.
Yeah, I know. That's I learned lots of things that way.
Alrighty, we're going to be taking a short break from the interview for just a moment here to play you guys a wonderful song called Hand for Hoof, made in compilation by zahqo and d.notive. It is an amazing song that made the #1 pick in Dryok's Top 10 of 2011 Pony Songs. So here you guys are, enjoy, and we'll be right back to the interview for more.
We're here to save your lives by free. the same. Just surrender all your shame. I'm not the one to blame. Should I surrender you my form? Will I accept this as the norm? To be a pony or a man? To lend a hoof or lend a hand? What you lack in your own faith, we make up in our own way. Let us convert your body to end this selfish plotting. All of Equestria calls your name, but things won't be the same. Just surrender all your shame. But I'm not the one to blame. How much longer will you hide? As long as it takes to decide. You're so much stronger on our side. Without you I'll still survive.
And now back to the interview. Next question.
All right.
What exactly do you guys do outside of the world of ponies? This is, obviously aside from your music.
Well, I feel like I've kind of already answered that in the beginning. Other than right now, I'm not doing too much, but I do have a lot of ambitions in like music or journalism, writing. I even wanted to do something in terms of film, but I haven't really explored it. I don't necessarily, because like my sister majored in art and did a ton of video production stuff. So
No kidding.
yeah, so I was kind of subjected to that too. And plus, like I see, I've seen like a few like really artsy films, and thought, wow, it'd be cool to do that. But right now, I'm sorry.
I need to show you my film stuff because I went to school for them. I did a lot of short films.
Oh, really? That's cool.
Yeah, I have, but my Hackintosh was originally built for video editing. But anyway, this is another conversation. Keep going.
Well, that's really it. So right now, I'm just kind of like, I think the reason why I'm able to do this stuff is because I have a lot of free time. Sometimes when you get sucked into the whole working world, you kind of forget about sort of furthering your career, and that's kind of where I was. And I've worked for that job for a while, and it's job stability. It keeps a roof over my head, so I can go home and just do whatever, like watch movies or blah blah blah. But now I like being productive, and it'd be kind of cool to do more of this and kind of see where that takes me. So I guess that's what I'll be doing outside of ponies.
Outside of the fandom, outside of the music making, I've got a couple things going on. One that I mentioned before briefly is I'm actually in the process. I'm looking for a house. There's a couple. I'm I've gone through the mortgage application process. I've had a realtor for about a year. I've been looking at places for about 7 months. The market's really good right now, and I'm fortunate enough that I've been planning this so long. I've got perfect credit, so I'm pulling that off. That's something I've been working at for several years now to try and make that happen, and getting very, very, very close. I can finally have a house and build my own studio space. And the other big thing for me, the reason I've always wanted to do that is because I'm also kind of a grease monkey. I like to fix cars. I fix stuff. I have an old Datsun 280Z. It's a little sports car from the 70s, and for the last 6 or 7 years, I've been trying to build that up. And one of the things I really need to do is just tear it apart and build a new engine for it and really strip it down. And, I need a space to do that. So that's kind of what started fueling this whole house search thing. So outside of being creative, I'm actually really kind of a blue collar guy. I love to tear stuff down and use power tools and get greasy and dirty and listen to engines be really loud.
So basically, outside of Pony, you're a big old masculine man. But then
I wouldn't go that far. I'm kind of a dainty little cookie sometimes, but I do like to fix things. I do like using tools. I have a lot of tools, actually.
I'm a manly man, but when I watch cartoons, when I watch girl cartoons, it's My Little Ponies.
What?
I know what you're putting. Hold on, that guy is awesome.
Oh yeah, I don't know.
Dos Equis guy.
And I followed his SoundCloud.
Dusty Cat.
Yes, and he was really humbled by that, and I was like, that's really cool.
Yeah,
your stuff is awesome too.
He's like a cool guy. No,
yeah.
I'm not like that. I'm not. It's not at all. The thing is, now that I've gotten older and now that I work full time, I'm just kind of it's really a lot of effort to fix things. It's really a lot of effort to take apart an engine and fix it. Because before it was necessity. Before it was I was poor and I had this 30-year-old sports car. And I'm like, how the heck am I gonna fix this thing? So I had to figure it out and do it on my own. It's just, I planned on it. I planned on it being that way when I bought it. I was like, all right, well, you know what? You don't buy a car this old without any ambition about knowing how it works, about trying to figure out how to fix things. So that was part of the plan all along. But it's being, like I said before, I'm big into cars, and that's always been the case. And outside of being creative, I love just, especially when it's summertime, it's 70 degrees outside, 75 degrees, and it's the middle of the afternoon, just being outside and, with the hood open, with your hands under the hood, and you're just covered with grease and oil, and you've got a whole bunch of you got the smell of new parts hanging in the air with the smell of engine. It's just, it's glorious. I love the feel of new car parts. That nice, freshly casted aluminum. It's great. I'm very tactile.
Alrighty. Well, next off, big important question. When and how did you guys originally fall into the Brony fandom?
For me, I saw a lot of the pictures crop up. I don't know how long ago. It must have been June or July, just all over the internet. And I didn't really know where they were coming from because I haven't owned a TV in a really long time. Not necessarily by choice, just because I haven't had one and I hadn't bothered to get one and have a place to set it up. So I never really know what's on. I never kind of pay attention. And thankfully for, all the internet services out there, you kind of don't need one that much anymore. But so I kind of was missing out, and then I started seeing music pop up, and that was really weird because considering what the show is, you don't expect that. Right. And some of it was ridiculous. I feel like this is something everybody mentions, but that Swagberg song, right? That was professional. The production value on that and the writing was just really good. And so I started kind of digging deeper, looking into the related videos and finding all sorts of people that were kind of doing this. So I think around August is when I actually watched the show for the first time. So I'm kind of a newbie, however you want to put it, and I was really drawn in by it. I ended up cleaning house on the first season. I think it was almost over at that time. So it was kind of nice just to be able to sit through and watch the entire season in one sitting and not have to wait for a new episode. And after that, I kind of wanted to figure out, because projects like these don't happen on their own. They're meeting up somewhere. And I sort of dived deeper, just kind of searching around. And I eventually ran into where all the Toe Spirits were happening. And that's where, a lot of those songs that you hear, a lot of the popular ones, say maybe 70-80% of them are from Toe Spirit originally. And then they, upload it to YouTube later. So, great on those guys to really drive it. And then I eventually, I didn't make a Toe Spirit as my first song. My first song took me too long. I ended up actually spending a month on it because I am a huge perfectionist and I didn't have a lot of time. Around that time, I actually ran into my vocalist, who is Haymek. It was in one of the chats, one of the IRCs, and he was just kind of hanging around, kind of the same way I was, just kind of curious, trying to figure it out. And we got to talking about phones for 2 hours because he has a job doing phone stuff. some phone carrier. And that was cool because I have a smartphone myself, so I can talk about phones. Anyway, and then I don't know at what point I realized he could even sing. It just kind of happened. I think we were like in a Skype call because eventually all these things led to Skype, and
everything.
And then
It's just eventually
Yeah.
end up on Skype. It's like the black hole of
It's like the Rod Sterling room.
yeah. Sorry.
So and then I don't know. He probably like whipped out his guitar at some point and just started to play, and I'm just like, wow, you're really good. Hey, you should do this. And I kind of started. I think before I formally asked him if he wanted to do it, I kept playing with song ideas and thinking like how he could fit in. And I wrote some stuff, and then I eventually asked him, and then he was like, "Yes, let's do this." So it took a really long time. It was a real painstaking process actually because I was really rusty, and I was actually looking to actually complete a song, which is something I didn't do. I eventually got to some point, and I shared it to some people at MLR, kind of in private, to some of the musicians that were hanging about, and they were like, "Wow, you need to post this." So I eventually posted a WIP, a WIP, so to speak, and I didn't really get a ton of responses on it, mostly because I don't know. People don't really look at WIPs as much as they do at final stuff. But the feedback I got was like, wow, that's really good. So, and now I've since taken that down, because if you like listen to that compared to like the finished product, there's a huge difference. It's so much better now. And I eventually did release it, and then boom, just kind of exploded from there. So that was kind of how I got into it. I got into it mainly because I saw a bunch of people doing a bunch of creative things, and I thought that was really cool because people are, this is a chance to use your skills for a creative outlet and have an audience for it. That's huge.
Right.
I could just make music and release it on YouTube under some random alias, some like aspiring artist trying to make it. And that's not to say I'm not using the community to make it, because I don't think it's ever going to get really that far, at least not for now. I really liked making music, and I kind of wanted to see people enjoy my creative expression, and they did, and that feels really good. So I'd like to keep doing it, but we can come back to that at a later point.
Well, it's kind of a long story, but I'll try to make it as succinct as possible, since everything's been a long story so far tonight. Basically, I used to be the moderator of an out-of-character channel on a role-playing website, and that I was going through a rather rough period with it, actually. It was really fun at first, and then people started being really mean on purpose and going out of their way to try and antagonize people, and it made my job really difficult because it was me and then like a staff of like 8 other people, and I was only one of 2 people who was actually cracking down on people being not appropriate to one another. So there's this person who I didn't particularly have a very good relationship with, who all of a sudden one day started like spamming my room with this video called "The Best of Pinkie Pie," and I'm thinking, I was like, what is this? Like, what is this pony thing? And then I realized it was a remake of My Little Pony, which, wasn't a stretch from my imagination because everything gets remade. And you're talking to someone who grew up watching both G1 and G2. So it's sort of like, oh, well, they're making more pony. I guess that makes sense. I knew they were doing like current ones that were like CG and not very good, but I didn't realize they like actually, remade it and animated it properly. So then, she eventually, I clicked the link and I was like, oh God, it's too cute. I can't watch it. I can't do it. And she kept spamming the link, and each time, so I kept thinking it was a different link each time she was spamming it, but, it ended up being the same link over and over and over again. And so, I kept clicking it, and I kept getting through more and more of it every time I'd click it. And then eventually, by the 3rd or 4th time, I was like, oh, okay, this is kind of funny, I'm not going to lie. And then eventually I admitted that I thought it was funny, and then it's sort of like this terrible rapport I had with this person suddenly became this, blossoming friendship because we had this thing to bond over. And
the first step is admitting it's funny.
What was that?
First step is admitting it's funny.
The first step is admitting that it's entertaining. It's like, oh, okay, well, it's not. It looks really dumb on the surface. It's so cute, gross, and it's all girly. And then you're like, okay, this is entertaining. I'm not gonna lie. I think the best of clip that existed at the time was only because you got to realize I didn't join. I wasn't on the first wave of people who joined. Oh, maybe I was. I don't know. Because the fandom didn't really start until when the show aired in October or so, November, October, and then I didn't come along and start watching it until January of last year, so 2011. And by that time, the fandom wasn't. I guess I thought it was in full swing at that point. I guess it didn't really explode till this last summer or something. I wasn't really paying attention, I guess. But anyway, it started because of that, and then I started watching the show, and I got really, really sick one weekend, and then we were only 2 episodes, 13 at that point of season 1 in January. I actually had my 1-year poniversary a couple weeks ago.
Ooh, no
Ooh. So I got really, really sick, and my girlfriend and I just sat down. I showed it to her, and she immediately liked it, like right away, like 10 seconds in. She's like, "This is the cutest thing ever. We have to watch this." So we sat down, and I had a really terrible cold, and I didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to leave or go anywhere. So we just sat down and marathon every single episode that had aired at that point. And from then on, watch every episode that aired every Saturday. You know, I'd come home from work, go over to her place, and we just watched a new episode with her friends. We got all her friends into it too. We'd all sit down, this group of like 10 people, like all these college students, just sitting down watching this show. And people would, and then if someone came in, they didn't know what was going on. We'd be like, you have to watch this, watch it. And then she'd have like these parties, and like at the end of the parties, we'd get everyone to sit down and watch the show with us. And so it became this like big thing where all our friends would sit down together and bond over the show.
I need new friends.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm probably really unique in having this experience because I got to bond over with but the thing is, because also I went to school for film, so a lot of my friends are film and TV people. You know, it wasn't a stretch for us to like sit down and admire its production values right away. And then her friends were like art people, so it wasn't a stretch for them to sit down and admire like all like the animation details and the production value there either. And then a bunch of our other friends are like theater people as well, so like we have all these like really intellectual, really like intense people who like study television and art and animation, you know, acting, sitting down and like watching the show and just sort of like without having to say anything, immediately recognizing its production values. So from there, you know, it's sort of like it became this like tacitly okay thing. We could all sort of like this show and not have to feel ashamed about it. Like, you know, like I think a lot of bronies go through this period of feeling ashamed about liking the show, like when they first get into it, you know. But I think I never really had that. I just sort of like liked it, and I had other people who liked it, and I was just sort of like always sort of like, cool, I like this, and other people like it too. It must be cool. And I tried. I mean, there was always a degree of sort of like reluctance in admitting to someone that you like the show who doesn't understand. But when everyone you know is like a really open-minded intellectual person, you try to explain to them in really open-minded intellectual terms, they go, "Huh, I guess I have to give it a try then." And so I just, over the summer, much like Sean, I discovered some of the fan music when I was at work, because I'm always out of things to listen to when I'm at the office. You know, you can only listen to Violator by Depeche Mode so many times, you know, in a given day, you know, before it gets old. So I started finding the fan music, and I found, I mean, Eurobeat Brony was the first one that I found, because Eurobeat Brony was making stuff while the show was airing. In fact, the channel that had all the episodes, Master Links or whatever back then, was also had favorited a lot of Eurobeat Brony stuff, and I wasn't really paying attention then, but I knew Eurobeat and I knew it was Ponies, so I was like, all right, that's cool. The first remixes I found were probably like Not a Clever Ponies stuff, even though that's not a remix, but for the Lunar Republic isn't a remix. And then some of Saltaskrit's stuff, Saltaskirts, however you say it, who I don't see much more of, but must still be out there somewhere. And anyway, I'm kind of rambling now, but like that was where it started coming from. And then I ended up obviously I think everyone at some point discovered Glaze, you know, because of Vast Fluttershy's.
Next question. We'll start with Mr. zahqo again. What is in particular, your favorite part of the Brony fandom?
I feel like I've sort of inadvertently anyway answered this question, but yeah, I'd say like the creative works that come from it. Everybody has a talent, and they're really super talented. Didn't realize there was this many people out there that could do all these things, and that's what really drew me in. So if I'd have to say that, you know, I want to keep this answer short and sweet because there's not a whole lot I can say about it. I mean, that's what got me here. So I just kind of want to keep going with it, and I want to keep everything in check in terms of the community is like a lot bigger now, and there's all sorts of things going on. But I'm still kind of here just for the, you know, the creative works and getting to communicate with other really talented people who all, you know, have common interest in the show. So yeah, that's really all I have to say about that.
Fandom, huh? Well, you know, I really still don't consider myself someone who's really into the fandom in and of itself. I mean, like, I follow it to a certain degree, but like I'm really only in it for the show, and occasionally, I mean, I guess I started to collect more art now. I mean, now that I like do music for it, I've sort of like inadvertently been sort of pulled into the fandom a bit more than I was before. So like I'm exposed to a lot more of it. In fact, I think I'm starting to sink pretty deep into it now that I think about it. Like I was role playing it for a really long time before I got into the music stuff. So like it's just sort of like something I did casually because, you know, I started, you know, role playing's always been something I've done online for a long, long time, since before I was even making music. And I have to say, I role play a pretty nice Pinkie Pie, not gonna lie. And my Doctor Who is also pretty good. But I don't know. I'm just the fandom. There's never really one of those things where there was a day I decided, yep, I'm in the fandom now. It's just one of those things where just sort of like I started.
Yeah, you just kind of slipped into it.
Yeah, I started watching the show, and then I started doing a couple of role plays here and there, and then I started like collecting a little bit of art, and then I started listening to the music, and then I started making the music, and then I collected more art, and then I started to
Next thing you
more
know, you
people.
own shirts.
Yeah, the next thing I know, I'm wearing a Rare Ari shirt to work, and like I have like desktop ponies, and I'm buying the merchandise, and there's a pony plushie in my bed, and people are going, "What the hell happened to you?" And my wallpapers are ponies, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, what's happening?
What have I become?
Yeah, exactly. And then like I'm getting excited because I'm gonna go to the con, and I'm just like, how did I get?
Is that official? Can we make that official?
I can't. It's as good as official, but I haven't actually bought my ticket yet. But it's probably as nerdy and terrible as it sounds. I'm waiting for my refund check from the IRS before I actually officially buy the ticket. Buying a house means I stay strict with my finances, and that's
Is this for BronyCon summer?
Yep.
Awesome. I really hope I can go myself, but it all depends on scheduling and work and the such.
Well, I might even go to both that and possibly Everfree as well.
Yeah, that would be cool.
I've been invited to play a show at Everfree.
Oh wow, that's pretty rockin'.
Yeah, so I'm tempted. I mean, I want to go to BronyCon just because Lauren Faust is going to be there, and John Delancey, who obviously I've loved John Delancey for like a really long time because I'm a huge Star Trek fan. So it's like, yes, like the second there was him in that episode, I was like, oh my God, it's John Delancey. That is so much instant nerd cred. That is the best. I was like freaking out, and just everyone else was like, what? Like, it's John Delancey. It's Q from Star Trek. You're like, what?
Yeah, that's
anyway,
how I was. That's
another
exactly
question.
How I was. Yeah.
That's another question. But yeah, anyway, yeah, BronyCon, it's almost as good as official. I'm probably going to end up going. A lot of people I know are trying really hard to go. A lot of people a lot of the musicians are really making a push to be there, and also all of us can like just finally hang out outside of Skype.
If you do go, are you gonna bring your vinyl scratch get up?
Of course.
You
course. I was even thinking about making another costume of my original character, which you see as my Skype avatar. Because a good friend of mine, a guy that we know, who goes by Super Saw Hoover, who was at the last BronyCon, is thinking about making a costume of his original character, which is female, Super Saw. And I'm kind of tongue in cheek writing a little steamy fiction about our two characters meeting up. So I thought it'd be really funny if he goes dressed as his character and I go dressed as mine, that we could sort of like have this like really awkward moment where we just like stand across each other like, hello baby, how's it going? Just see who can be awkwarded out first.
Alrighty. Next up we have here's my personal favorite, Mr. Zahqo. Who is your favorite pony and why?
See, I'm glad I thought about this today because I knew I'd be asked that. So I know which one you want me to say. Well, maybe you don't, but if you think about it hard enough, I guess for a while it was Rainbow Dash. When I first got in the community, it was Rainbow Dash, but then I had a friend kind of always told me, you know what, I don't think this was you. It could have been you. There's between two people, somebody said this, and that, you know what, she's the best pony to look at. And I thought about that, and after a while, I'm like, yeah, you know what, she's not as interesting as I thought she was originally. And then when I got to writing, my first song, which ended up being my first big song, how that was based on Luna. And to be honest, I didn't actually originally write that to be based on. It was actually originally written around a fictional OC. And after going back and forth with Haymaker about it somehow turned into Luna, and then sort of enveloped this sort of kind of like backstory almost, and deep lyrics. And I guess she would be my pick now. I feel like I've gotten an appreciation for Luna out of the whole process, especially after the new episode. I thought that was a pretty interesting take on her character as well. So, let's take that as you will. I hope that was a good answer. I don't know if that was a good answer.
Hey, whatever's your favorite. My favorite through and through is Rainbow Dash, because ever since they opened her up in the first episode, I love everything about her. Everything. Blue is not my favorite color. I don't like the color blue, and I'm not a big fan of rainbows, which is hilarious. And I still love her. I love her because she's brash. I love tomboys. She is the embodiment of like my dream girl. She's hilarious, and like I love her flaws too, because she's she's tactless, and she's brutally honest at the perfect times when everything's quiet and there's that, how do we answer this? We need to be delicate on how we deal with this situation. And Rainbow's just all like, well, she kind of is, and everyone just gives her that glare, and it's just perfect.
And she offers good contrast to the other characters, and yeah, I like her spunk. So
oh, I love it so much. She's super awesome. My favorite. I love her so much. Forever's Blue Pony is best pony in my opinion. but anyway, how about you, Mr. d.notive?
Well, it's unfortunate because actually Rainbow Dash has turned into one of my least favorites. I'm not gonna...
It's actually really funny because I know what your answer is going to be, and I'm pretty sure I know what your answer is going to be, and actually, she's my least favorite.
Yeah, you and Tarby together, man. You're just like Rarity is worst pony, and I'm like, come on.
Sorry.
I like how we've written songs like originally over.
Yeah.
Like,
well,
what we'd now probably consider best pony.
It's just one of those things where I find her easy to write about. I have a Rarity brushie on my desk, just chilling. You know, she. In fact, that very first Toast Period, I was kind of strapped for an idea. And so I had this Rarity on my desk in my bedroom, where my other computer is, and I brought her downstairs into the studio, and just put her there, just like stared at it for like 5 minutes, and I literally sat there and stared at it, and literally just to be funny, I said, "Give me inspiration," you know. So then
I'm picturing this right now.
Yeah,
yeah.
You've seen it, Sean. I've had it on. I've just, you know.
Yes, I know what it is.
You're gonna have to do that. You're gonna have to take a picture of yourself doing that with the little title at the bottom. Give me inspiration, and we're gonna stick that as the picture for the interview at this point, right here.
That could work.
You have to do it.
So, Rarity was not my first pick for favorite at first. At first, I was like, Pinkie Pie is crazy. She's hilarious. I adore her. She's the kind of person I'd want to be friends with, you know, if she were a person, that is. And it continued that way through most of season 1, and then the episode with the Diamond Dogs happened, and I was like, Rarity, you are significantly less annoying than I remember you being. And I was like, Rarity, you're hilarious. And then it was like, you know, it just became this thing where I became really, really endeared to her because I was like, you know, I'm not going to speak about it in terms of, you know, being real or whatever, but Rarity, she sort of demonstrated that all this the fact that she kept up this like sort of like this act of being really prissy and really like drama queen in these really dire circumstances sort of like made me reconsider what it meant. So I'm like, well, you know, maybe this isn't actually who she is. Maybe this is just like a facade she puts on, you know, to sort of like deal with the tribulations of life. The fact that she's like in this really like horrific situation and like facing like permanent bondage and slavery, and she's like keeping up this air and like using it as a weapon maybe means that it's not sincere, that it's actually just something she puts on to like use as a defense mechanism to cope with the world. And so like when I started thinking that, I'm like, I know, so like when I thought about that, I'm like, well, maybe she's actually like a really vulnerable individual. Maybe she's like really, really like actually very sad inside, you know. And so then like every successive episode I saw that had her with a significant role, even revisiting old episodes, this sort of like opinion that I'd formed became sort of reaffirmed. Like it sort of became more and more solid. This idea that Rarity's actually a very, very, very fragile individual, and she has this she puts on airs to sort of like insulate herself from what's going on around her. And in that sense, she seemed the most real to me, the most like human archetype of the characters, because her flaw isn't out there for you to see. Her flaw is very like behind the scenes. It's very like
right.
It's very understated, which is what I like the most. That, and she thing is, I minored in theater. She reminds me a lot of some very, very wonderful women that I came to know very well, and that also didn't hurt in endearing me to her. And and on top of that, she's just got a lot of class and has taste, and those are all things I admire in actual women. So it would stand to reason I would admire that in a fictional female. So I mean, you know, Rarity's definitely my favorite, but I think Twilight Sparkle is now a very, very close second.
Awesome. Alrighty. Next, do you guys feel like you have your favorite, but do you feel like you more personally resemble somebody else?
I mean, some pony else?
Yes. Because usually when someone has a favorite pony, that's someone they wish they could be, but they know that they themselves share more personality traits with, you know, maybe someone else.
That's a hard question for me to answer, because I guess I've never really felt that way. I felt like if I were sort of in that universe, the character that I would be doesn't actually exist.
Yeah. Personally, that's the same answer there. I have my OC, and I'm sticking to it. I love, you know, I think that I would bring a cool flavor into the world, and I don't think all of my friends say that I'm 80% Rainbow Dash and 20% Pinkie Pie, so I can slide in the 20% cooler joke. It's really really cheesy, but
No one steals my plunder.
Don't even start this. It can only lead to bad things. We get Tarby to listen to this after.
He'll be like, oh God. He'll be like,
Skip to this time.
Oh, he'd be like, why did you guys do that? What? I'm sorry, Tarby. I love you.
So how about you, d.notive? Do you feel that you more personally represent, or you have more traits akin to some other pony?
I think a lot of me is there are definitely some Rarity parts to me in terms of personality, but not completely, obviously, because Rarity wouldn't be caught dead working on a car. You know, she would not revel in being sweaty and greasy. She would not enjoy physical labor. She's a unicorn. She doesn't have to do physical labor. So in that sense, I think I definitely have a lot of Rainbow Dash as far as my personality goes. I like to call at people, and I don't do it to be obnoxious or to be confrontational, but I have no qualms about calling a situation like it is in the moment that it's happening, and that takes a certain kind of courage that I think that Rainbow Dash has. And there are also definitely some Twilight Sparkle moments where I'm just sort of like, what? I think I need to read a book to understand how this works, like just some really obvious things that I should know, but I don't, so I had to go look it up, I don't know. I love Twilight Sparkle. She's so silly. She doesn't she doesn't understand things.
Now that you said that, I didn't even think about it, because I was thinking it in my head. I was going to say, if I had to pick someone else in my life that resembled somebody in the show, I would say my sister's pretty much Twilight Sparkle. Aside from living in a library, but
Oh, yeah.
If only. I would love to live in a library. Library tree. That would be amazing.
Yes.
Next off, we have d.notive. Who is your favorite villain and why?
Hey, it's going to be a really short answer. Favorite villain? Discord. Why? John Delancey. End question.
End question. Alrighty. Plain and simple. That's the shortest answer we're going to get from him tonight, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, wait. Hey, yep.
Mr. Zahqo, how about you?
I can beat that. Discord. No, I'm just... Actually, that was actually what I was going to say. Again, my memory of season 1's a little bit hazy at this point, but I think in terms of memorable villains, it was Discord. Just because really that episode was really kind of messed up in the way they just messed with people. A lot of real abstract stuff. Well, I don't know about that part, but yeah, he's just he's kind of a fun character because he's malicious, but he's almost not. Just he's really bored or something. And
he's been stuck in stone for 1,000 however years or whatever.
Of course, I didn't know how he acted before that. He could have been the same, but I don't know. Yeah, that's short and simple. It's him.
Next off, we're going to go back into a bit more of your professional musical sections of life. We have if you guys could maybe talk about some of your more recent pieces that you've done.
Well, the most recent thing I've released is a song called Don't Force It, which I worked on with Yelling at Cats, who's a great guy. Because actually, the thing is, we'd never... Yelling at Cats was guys where, I'd heard his work, and I'd always liked it, but I never thought to myself, oh, I should work with him, until I came to know him personally. As soon as we started hanging out in a couple Skype calls together, I was like, he's actually a really deep, interesting guy, and I would love to work on him. So, I was working through January, up to the beginning of the month, on remastering my stuff, and it was really, really draining. In fact, I was feeling really uninspired to do anything at all, and I was just sitting in a Skype call with Yelling at Cats one night, and all of a sudden I was thinking hey man, it'd be really fun to do an electro funk piece with you sometime and have some hip hop, rap kind of stuff thrown in there, because if you don't know, Yelling at Cats is he's a rapper. It's kind of what he's known for right now. And then all of a sudden, as soon as I said that, I was like, as soon as I'm out of this creative slump, I'll totally start working on that. Then as soon as I said that, a bass line entered my head, and that became the song. So it broke me out of this slump. It was kind of nice. I got to do something I haven't stylistically done, but I've always wanted to do, which is funk. Because I think this fandom needs a lot more of it. I think we have a lot of the same stuff. Not that I'm necessarily trying to be that guy who's well, I'm going to save us from mediocrity. I'm going to bring new genres to the fandom because that's what we need. I'm not going to be that guy, but it's fun to try and do things that people haven't necessarily heard much of, because then you're sort of like in uncharted territory, and there's not a whole lot you have. Like there's not. This is going to sound really bad, but there's not like a bar that's been set yet, so you kind of get the chance to try and experiment and see how well the subject matter fits into a new sort of context. And so for that song, we tried to like yelling. I don't know if you know this, but yelling at Cass is like he's not really into like the whole like people pretending that certain ponies are in relationships together, or like he doesn't like to look at like a lot of the artwork that's been done, or like listen or read a lot of the fanfic, because he just think it's really my understanding from what I've talked to him about it. It just makes him really uncomfortable, and it makes him upset. And I mean, I can understand why. I'm not quite so much to the same extent. I mean, I think a lot of like the artwork that gets based on the idea of certain characters in relationships together, a lot of the fanfics that are based on the same thing, it gets a little gratuitous. It gets a little intense. It's, at some point it stops being funny, and it's just sort of like, all right, enough. We've seen enough pictures of Rarity and Twilight Sparkle. We've seen enough pictures. We've read enough fanfics about this pairing. It's not interesting anymore. But people, so.
He's a bit of a pony purist. I like to call it. I like me, and like the whole point of Equestria Inspired is we try and keep everything more or less not canon per se, but in the original spirit of the show within itself.
You keep it clean and fun. You don't make it adult just because you're an adult watching the show.
Right. The show is so amazing because it can be child safe and still be ingenious and hilarious, and that's kind of what we're trying to go for. Exactly. And it's nice to see that there are artists and other people who are kind of sticking to the core.
I mean, it's kind of tough. He has a hard time making a case because he likes to swear a lot in his songs too. So, it's kind of like, man, I'm a pony purist, and then he's dropping all these cuss words at his stuff. It's just kind of like, yeah, all right. But I mean, the whole point of the song that we did was to sort of like call people out on this just a little bit, like not in like a mean way, but it's sort of like the title "Don't Force It" is sort of like saying like stop forcing these romantic situations into a context where it was never meant to be. Like,
exactly.
Yes. Like. Stop taking these characters who were never ever meant to have romance as part of their character, and you're
right. Like they're taking it beyond the realm of just for fun, and it's like they almost want it to be that.
Yeah,
it's you're
imposing it on the character. So like, and it's not trying to be like derisive against these people. I mean, who are we to say like, no, you can't do this, it's wrong, but it's sort of it's so prevalent now, we just kind of accept it, and there are a lot of people who aren't like in love with it, so like it's just our sort of attempt to be like, I mean, the thing is, I'm not as extreme about it as he is. I will admit there are definitely some steamy pictures in my pics folder somewhere, and as someone who has done a lot of role playing, there's been a few interesting situations that have cropped up over the last year, but for the most part, I don't like it when it's gratuitous. Like I like, a tasteful amount is fine, because then it's like you can just sort of take it as it comes. Just sort of like, let's make a song about how sometimes it's just too much, and people could afford to sort of focus on some of the other aspects of the show for a while.
Yeah, the show is cool because how it's child safe and how it's all nice, and that's what's so funny, and it's nice to see some people realize that I agree that there's so much all of this, and everyone's focusing on that, and I'm sure that they can come up with their own cute ideas, but that's really that's putting stuff into the show that's not in the show, and I like the show because it's part of the show. So sure, someone can write a really amazing fanfic where they're throwing Halo characters into My Little Pony, but it's like, okay, it's a clever idea, I'll give you credit, but one and done, man.
Well, I mean, and I think to be fair, we do have to remember that the only reason this is cool or prevalent is because of 4chan, and like in 4chan they get a kick out of just like doing silly sort of senseless things to stuff. So I mean, like it's a big laughing point. And I think a lot of it started as like a joke, but I mean, a lot of it isn't intended as a joke. And I mean, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that either. Just when it gets to be the point when there's like so much of it that we just kind of accept it as the norm, I mean, that it gets to be a bit much for someone who doesn't always want to be exposed to it, Anyway, that was the point of the song in a long roundabout way.
How about you, Mr. Zahqo, your recent piece?
Well, I guess the recent least, anyway, that'd be Hand for Hoof. I don't know if I did that toast beer that one time. I don't know if that was before or after that. No, that had to have been before. So yeah, that's my latest.
Super awesome, by the way. Can't say that enough. I heard it once in the middle of my I wonder what I'm going to do, and that hit #1 on my top 5 of all pony music. Like that.
I've gotten
I'm
that
really
multiple
picky when it
times
comes
enough
to my
to.
music.
Yeah, and I've gotten that multiple times enough that I'm surprised.
Yeah, it was number 10 on Everfree's list of top 100.
Totally.
Yeah, I don't know how that
should have been
happened.
high. It should have been higher, in my opinion.
Well, but I mean, like Alex S was number 11 right underneath us with what would it be?
Many others. You know, it's just.
It's just weird for us. We're like, okay, well, we just kind of like just started.
A lot of the music that got us here to begin with, we were on top of according to them. I know it's just a list from one website, but it's cool when you're held to that regard. Yeah, good on that. And that kind of makes me excited about wanting to do future songs. I feel like that's still coming up. So
Zahqo's got some super secret songs, but I won't press him to talk about him.
Oh, no juicy secret first time released ever Equestria Inspired details.
Well, are we just gonna like dive right into that topic?
No, I'm not even suggesting we dive into the topic. I don't.
No. I mean, I know how I'm going to say it because I'm not going to reveal anything.
I know. I'm not. I'm just trying to like say like I still love Zahqo. He's not just sitting there doing nothing. He's working on stuff that's really cool, but we're not allowed to talk about explicitly what it is.
But he's being the perfectionist self and
no, not even. He's just busy. I just want to say that.
Yeah. So I guess I'm working on things. I'll say one of them is an original piece, one of them is a remix, and supposedly at some point an EP with somebody else. So I don't know when any of those things are supposed to happen. It's kind of hard to talk about them when the details aren't set in stone. But hopefully soon. I'd really like to get them out soon, so just keep a lookout.
Alrighty. Do you have, aside from any aforementioned people that kind of got you going, do you have any other major influences that that have kind of maybe spiked your interest or something else in your music? This could be both in or out of the pony fandom.
I think probably when I heard Not a Clever Pony, that was kind of what opened my mind to this idea that there was fan music out there, because it was the first song that sort of had its own context outside of the show. It wasn't just a remix. So it's like, oh, all right. So it's kind of taken, I was like, it's taking some liberties then. All right, that's cool. I never thought of that. I don't even know how I stumbled onto mylittlерemix.com. I wouldn't say there's any one particular Brony musician that really like pushed me into it. It's one of those things where, I started hanging out on the IRC channel and was sharing some of the stuff that I've been working on up until that point, because I was doing a lot of like electro funk stuff, which I would love to kind of get back into at some point. Because I mainly just kind of wanted to like pick some brains of producers. It's kind of like, these are some really there's some really talented people here. I should just kind of like try to learn more about music and about producing in general. I didn't necessarily have it in my mind that I was ever going to like make music about the show like these guys were doing. I didn't think I had it in me. I didn't think I had the capacity to like consistently produce as much as they did. And no one in particular, but just sort of everyone in the IRC channel. I was sharing just a couple of my works in progress stuff I was doing. They're like, hey man, you're pretty good. You should, And then at one point I was like, hey, I'm thinking of doing the Toast Beard this week. For the first time. They're like, yeah, man, you should do it. It's gonna be awesome. Do the Toast Beard, man. Awesome. And I did it, and people were like, hey, man, that was awesome. And I was like, all right, really? So then I kept doing it. I think.
And here you are.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because, came full circle because, one of the people who got me into it at first, who opened my world to it, in addition to Not a Clever Pony, was definitely Glaze, Wooden Toaster. I think everybody knows who he is. And he, I didn't realize this till after I went back a month later and looked at the chat log. He was actually in the IRC because he did Beyond Her Guard for the same Toast Beard I did After Hours, the Rarity, which is my first one. And he was in the Skype chat, or not the Skype chat, the IRC channel when that Toast Beard was going on. It was listened to it, and he was commenting like everybody else was. And I didn't even make the connection at the time that it was the same guy. And so then when I uploaded Let Your Main Down, which was the first song I put on my YouTube, he was one of the first people who commented on it. And because he did that, all his fans were exposed to it immediately. And so there was this full circleness to it. Like this guy that I didn't know knew who I was, or even that I knew that I didn't even think went in the same circles as me, was this guy. And suddenly I realized oh my God, that guy knows who I am. And that guy thinks I'm good. And that guy's fans think I'm good. What just happened? So I think he deserves a lot of the credit in that respect.
Yeah, I guess to kind of build upon that too, when I released my song, I think the first, notable people in the community that found me happened to be Tombstone and Mike the Microphone. Of course, they're good friends, so it's not surprising it was about this, they found me at the same time, but I thought that was really cool because, I've heard a bunch of their work as well. Yeah, it's neat how that happens.
Alrighty, for this one's have you guys ever worked with anybody else, any other compilations with other artists before?
No.
Yes.
you you have the spotlight.
Oh,
Yeah.
right. I suppose I answered yes. Before I did these two compilations, my last one was many, many years ago, back when I was a budding video game music composer on vgmusic.com. I was publishing only in general MIDI, like you did back then when you had dial-up. Way back in my day, I did a collaboration with this guy who went at the time. His name was Cloud Strife, video game music. It was supposed to be for a competition that lasted like a month, but we were the only duo that finished, so we kind of just like inadvertently won because nobody else got their act together and was able to like come up with something that was even remotely close to complete. And what's kind of neat is I was like 17 years old, 16 years old. And here's this guy who's like 22. He was at the time in the postgraduate program at Yale for music comp theory, and like for orchestral stuff. And he's now actually a professional composer for video game music. Yeah, I still keep in touch with him every now and then. Real cool guy. And it was just really weird because I'll admit I was not very good. So I tried to come up with something that was kind of complicated. At least what I perceived at the time to be complicated. And he just sort of like went with it. He rolled with it. He was just like, whatever, electro beat, 4/4 time, I can do that. And so like I gave him this real simple little kind of like thing. And then all of a sudden he like had this build up, and then an orchestra happened with my beat and my bass line. And then it came back and he's like, all right, yeah, you do the next part. And I was like, oh, okay. It was, this is the
Fluttershy moment there.
I was like, well, whatever you want to do is fine. So pretty much, so that was my only other collaboration experience. I mean, in terms of like doing it the way we do now, I mean, obviously I had, like I said, my band, quote unquote, with this one other guy for a couple of years, and that was like an in-person collaboration, which isn't quite the same, So yeah, but I've done a few collaborations, and usually the one I mentioned with the composer is the only one I've done where I didn't get to have complete control over everything, because everything else I've done has been like in my studio with me doing all the mixing and writing and production and stuff. And then, except for Zahqo, which, we collabed and we decided to be faster to have him do all the mixing in FL, and I just send him stems.
Do you guys have any, now is the other question is, do you guys have any details that you'd like to, that you feel that you can leak on future projects that you should want to get your fans eager and hoping for?
I feel like I was missed on one of the questions.
Were you? Well,
the major influences one. I don't think I answered that. Did I?
I don't know.
Didn't you say Tombstone and Mike?
No. I was building upon what you were saying in that they were the first to discover me. They weren't necessarily my influences.
Gotcha. I thought that's what you meant.
Yeah, no, I kind of, I guess, I'm trying to think now because I don't know if I have a good answer for this. Have you by chance heard of this guy named d.notive?
You shut up. You just shut up now.
I guess I can talk about real life influences. I'm really into industrial. Obviously, that's no secret at this point. So, stuff like Nine Inch Nails. I don't do a lot of, guitar heavy stuff, or I'd say things like KMFDM, but Skinny Puppy, Ogre, that sort of stuff. My favorite band, I could say, is Hybrid. They're this, God, I can't even tell you where they're from now, but basically they're this group, breaks group that did a lot of electronic music throughout the 2000s and recently had released a new album featuring a new singer, but they had also done like lots of orchestral stuff mixed in with the electronic stuff that they do for films. And so I've always been really inspired by like the huge complexity of their music and the way that I guess you could say they hybrid orchestral with electronic music, and I really wish I could do more of that. So yeah, look it up, Hybrid, or hybridsoundsystem.com, I think.
Oh, I've heard of them. Hybrid Sound System.
Yeah,
they're cool.
Yeah, they're pretty good. So aside from that, yeah, I mean, real heavy on the industrial stuff, and then of course the more recent influences of future pop like Neurotic Fish and BNV Nation and Icon of Coil.
Yes,
like yes. Yeah, so I love that stuff, and I hope to make more stuff kind of like that. I haven't been. Actually, I've been making a lot of chill-out stuff, which I think that I'm pretty good at, but again, haven't had a real chance to explore as much as I'd like. I'd released that song Griffin Wings that no one heard. But that was pretty much.
To that again today. It was pretty good.
I heard it. It was great.
Yeah, it that was a direct influence towards a lot of the like borderline ambient kind of chill out music that I listen to a lot. Stuff by Xerxes and Workbench and can't think of another now off the top of my head, but Pete Namlook, something like that. Anyway, and I really like that stuff. So there's actually a recent one too that I was listening to a lot of. I can't for the life of me think of who they were, but that was really cool. And they did like a live performance of a song with an orchestra. So just a lot of that like real mood type music, ambient, not necessarily like lounge, but chill out. So I'm going to be doing more of that. You actually probably see more of that soon.
Awesome.
Great. It's funny, I don't think I ever really got to answer that question either, because I talked about like my brony musician influences, but in terms of like as quote unquote real life, that's a funny way to describe it. Like real life musician. Like in real life, like outside of the internet, outside of bronies, they're the real life musician.
Yeah, because people on the internet aren't real.
Right. Well, I
kind
touched
of in this thing like being like a micro society, so sometimes you forget there's a world outside of here.
That's true. In fact, that might go back later to I think what might end up being the last question. But I think I touched on this earlier, but Depeche Mode's my single biggest influence in terms of quote unquote real life musicians. Depeche Mode. It's weird because I was making video game music and I wasn't really going anywhere with it. I didn't think I'd ever get a chance to really do it professionally because my repertoire of what I was able to create wasn't in my mind diverse enough. I had sort of very specific genres I could do, and that was really it. My opinion at the time was that a video game music composer ought to be diversified and have the capacity to do a lot of different styles, which I just didn't have. And then that was the right moment at the right time. I discovered Depeche Mode, and I was like, oh my god, all these musical ideas, these ideas that I didn't think would ever be poppy are actually poppy. And on top of that, their vocalist is a guy who has my range. So from that point, I stopped thinking about video game music altogether and started realizing that all my musical ideas could be pop songs. In terms of structure, not in terms of like whether or not they're actually pop songs. And so discovering them sort of made me change my entire perspective on my songwriting and kind of been growing and evolving ever since. But Depeche Mode's the biggest one. And then I think, obviously, I think I was really, really influenced by 80s metal, and not even necessarily all the good stuff, like the bad stuff too. So I really love like Van Halen. I just love Van Halen, and I grew up listening to Deep Purple and AC/DC, and I love like the really like Def Leppard. Oh my God, you can say what you want about them, but their production is just incredible. I grew up listening to all that stuff. I love old metal, like the super poppy, just in your face, sugar coated metal that metalheads quote unquote really hate. But I love it because it's pop music to me. And then synth pop and all that old great stuff from the 80s that we know now is synth pop, like the Human League and anything that Stock Aitken and Waterman did. And then I got in like all that funk stuff like Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, because obviously I'm from Minneapolis, so we love like Prince and Janet Jackson. And then like Sean, I love industrial stuff. Like I have a number of Nine Inch Nails albums. I got future pop. I have V&V Nation albums and Icon of Coil and Colony 5 and Erotic Fish. Imperative Reaction's a big one. I love Imperative Reaction. So that was that.
All right.
Also,
Yeah.
that artist I was trying to think of, the Flashbulb.
Oh.
I think that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Flashbulb. That's fantastic. Look that up.
Alrighty.
Okay, go ahead.
So, one of our winding up close to the end here, last questions is, if you guys have any information that you can leak to your listeners here, do you have any magical, awesome secrets for future upcoming projects that you would like to announce?
I don't know. You'll have to talk to my agent. No, I'm just kidding.
And they say he doesn't have a sense of humor. Come on.
It's, when the time is right.
It's a dry humor.
Shut up. Pretty much, yeah. I'm working on an original song. It'll have vocals, some form or another. But I know I haven't done an original song with vocals. It's not going to be mine, but I'll just say that. And then a remix of a song that gets remixed a lot, and it's Pony. So
Yes.
But I heard this, and I heard like all the remixes, and I never really heard the remix because I really enjoyed the song, and I never heard the remix that I wanted to hear from it, I guess. So this is kind of my chance to do that.
Right.
Sort of my style.
I know that feel, bro.
So I'm doing that, and then that EP, which is going to be some industrial thing. If we still do it, that one's up in the air.
Okay, well, I'm still working on an album, sort of in between, sort of behind the scenes. I've been remastering Let Your Main Down. I've been remastering Rainbow Dash Pick Me, Mistress Sakura, and I'm also redoing Pony Fantasy and redoing The Final Battle, which is only on my SoundCloud. And I'm coming up with a few new original songs, and I'm going to turn it all into an album, which is something that's been taking a really long time. Remastering is just such a pain. I probably spent 40 hours alone remastering Rainbow Dash Pick Me. I think Sean probably remembers that weekend, because I'm just like, every time anyone would message me, I'd be like, can't talk, mastering. I would get up at like 2 in the afternoon and just like not leave my studio except to eat and use the bathroom, and then I'd stay there till like 6 o'clock in the morning and just like keep working. You know, I mean, I'd take breaks obviously so my ears don't fall out of my head, but that was a very long weekend, right around Christmas.
Anybody will tell you that mixing and mastering is a nightmare.
I was going to say that's not even that's I've never done it before, but I'd imagine that's the grindy part, because you don't even get to enjoy the making of the new song.
Yeah, well, some people really love mixing and mastering. Like Lauren G, who was great. She said she told me mastering's her favorite part. You know, and I'm just like, okay, more power to you.
You know, I can kind of sympathize with that, because actually I've had enough woes just trying to write music that it gets really annoying. That sometimes I wish I just had a finished song and all I had to do was worry about the mix and master.
Oh my god, I will gladly send you my stems to master for me. I'm just like, oh. My favorite part is putting the song together. Like when you have the musical idea and you start combining ideas, you make, quote unquote, you make the song. You put it all down and you have the guts of it together. And like that's my favorite part. And I can do that in like just a couple of hours. You know, like that's the fun part. I just have so much fun doing that. It's like everything else is sort of secondary. Even writing the lyrics sometimes is just sort of
the problem with me is I do it in parallel. This might not be the best way to do it, but I think I sort of mix and master while I write. I think the way my brain operates is that I'm not happy with a composition until it sounds the way I really want it. That's probably a huge mistake to do it that way, but that's kind of how I do it, and it's worked out so far, I think. But
there's no right or wrong way, man. If you get products out of it, there's no wrong way.
Yeah, just it kind of disrupts the flow sometimes when you like write something and you're like, wait, I'm going to make this sound as perfect as I can right here before you even finish writing the rest of it, and then when you get back to writing the rest of it, you're kind of stuck.
See,
so
I had to avoid that mindset intentionally because I use so much hardware. To apply any effects to the hardware, you have to like render it, you have to record it into the DAW first and then apply the effects. So like if I want to sidechain something to a kick, I have to go back and record the kick separately. So and that is just such a huge disruption. So sort of like, well, I know what it's going to sound like in my head when it's sidechained, or roughly. Let me just finish banging out the guts of the song so I have a structure I can stick to, and then I'll start tweaking, you know? Anyway, that's just we have very, very different MOs, he and I do, which is kind of refreshing sometimes, because that's like that song.
I think that's what made that song work out. So
it's just like it was like, well, you know, we need like a chord progression. I was like, hold on, I think I have one. Yep, I've got it. We'll have this for the verse, this for the chorus. You know,
and I'm just sitting there going, yep, that sounds great. Do that.
Yep, then I send it over, and then Sean be like, we need an arpeggio for this part of it. Hold on, I think I've got one.
I need something metallic, because I actually specifically remember saying that. I need something metallic.
It's kind of metally. I'm like, how about this one? You're like, that's perfect. Actually, you're like, well, you know what? Actually, that'll work. That's perfect. And I was like, okay. And then he's like, and then we need some pads. I'm like, I think I might have the right one to start us off with here. And you're like, yes, that one. That one's great. I made him very jealous because I'm one of the few people that it's fortunate enough to have enough disposable income to occasionally buy some hardware. So everyone else uses like VSTs and software, and I have actual hardware synthesizers in my studio, which is it brings a whole different quality to a lot of the stuff. But you know, this is straying from the question, because the question was what do I have coming up other than the album. I can tell you right now, I'm working on a collab. I'm working on some stuff for Everfree Radio's doing 80s Week starting February 13th, and Final Draft from Everfree Radio came to me and was like, hey man, you did that 80s Becoming Popular remix. Do you have any more 80s stuff in the works? And I was like, not yet, but maybe now I will.
Yeah, I do now.
So I'm working on a power ballad with Tarby, which I'm very excited about, and I think he's really excited about. Hopefully we can get it finished by next week. I just banged out the guts of that thing last night. And I've got another collab that I'm supposed to start on that I just haven't had the chance to have the Skype call with the person yet, because we're in vastly different time zones. And I'm not going to say who it is because we haven't started it yet. Once it's started, I'll feel better about, you know, because I don't want to get people's hopes up or like announce that I'm doing some collab with somebody specific if it's not actually anything that exists yet. And there's actually, I have two in the works.
I think I know what it is.
Well, I think I told you who it was. Should know. And then I think allegedly I'm going to be doing vocals for another track. that's almost fleshed out now. And I started another collab months ago with somebody, but I'm not sure what the deal is with that one. He's just very, very busy and also apparently very, very famous. So it's, little old me. Just
Okay, now I'm confused. Which of those is who I think? Forget it.
I'll tell you afterwards. I can tell you both. I'm not announcing anything. I can tell you afterwards.
That's fair enough.
So, but the one that I have actually started writing and actually started sequencing and producing is, I think I'm safe in saying that Tarby and I will have a finished track soon. So that's coming up. And also, this week's Toast Beard is a loosely style emulation for your idols. And because I just mentioned that Depeche Mode's my biggest influence, I'm going to try very, very, very hard to make a track that sounds like Depeche Mode, which I'm really excited about.
I really like that theme, so if the planets align, I'll do it. But I'd say don't get your hopes up, just because I am trying to work on a couple of other tracks. I'm going to throw it out there right now. Hopefully next week I'll have a new track.
All right.
Awesome. A time.
If it's not out next week, then I did something horribly wrong. Someone should call for help and make sure I'm still alive.
Yeah.
Because I'm so far along in this thing.
If it's the one I'm thinking of, it's not.
It's not. It's a different one because I didn't tell you much about it. I don't want to show it to anyone, even like friends, because I feel like when I do that, then it messes me up. So I think the more that I keep this under wraps and just like until it's like 99% done, then I'll feel like comfortable telling people about it. But again, it's a remix, and I know I don't have much original work, but in a way, I kind of like doing these remixes. Because, being in the community, I think the best part's working with other people or other people's material and, like, bringing your style to the table. So I feel like original works will happen, but I've had this in the back of my mind for a while. So
Awesome. It's really awesome seeing, people who have the same interests, making music and whatever. Like you guys, it's so nice seeing you guys come together, making a piece, and now you guys have blossomed into this cool, like, work/friendship going on.
Oh, well, we were friends before we did the track.
Oh.
Yeah. I think I'm safe in saying that. I don't know. I mean, I feel like Sean. I feel like
we were well acquainted.
Yeah, but I feel like
we were totally friends before, right? We
right?
you liked me, right? Yeah.
No, we were definitely friends before we made the track. That's actually the reason we made the track, because we'd sort of bonded over the fact that we had similar tastes, and we had sort of just put it out there, like, at some point we should try to make a track together since we have a lot in common musically, both in what we like and and that Toast gave us the opportunity
together with people, and it's like, well, it seems like a good opportunity.
Yeah, so that's what happened. And I think eventually we're going to... I don't want to say anything out loud, but I think we're definitely planning on doing it again. We just don't know when.
Good. That's what I want to hear, at least.
Yeah, I think we're definitely going to combine forces again. I think it'd be fun to let kind of Sean take more of the songwriting lead this time, because I think hand for hoof, I did most of like the structure and arranging. Like he did all like the arranging and like the production and the stuff that like I can't do very expediently, and I just sort of like said, all right, here's a chord progression, here's some lyrics, this is the song, So
yeah.
I think
so that's out there.
Yep.
Well, from your guys' work, you seem like you make a really good team, so like I sure can't wait to hear what else you'll come up with, regardless as to how far down the line it is.
Well, I've often lamented the fact that we're geographically so far apart, because I'd actually love to just like be able to sit down in the same room together and like actually in a truly collaborative sense come up with something,
Right.
Like it's really difficult.
It probably happen a lot faster.
Well, yeah, because we'd have keyboards, we'd have lots of keyboards, and Sean could like drool over my equipment while I figure out how to use the computer, and then like we could sit down.
I wish I had just, I have guitar pedals. I'll bring that and we'll just plug it into stuff.
Plug it into my microKORG. That'll be great. No, let's plug it into my Casio, my little Casio SK1.
I'm probably going to use your condenser mic because mine's terrible.
I have a knockoff SM58. Anyway, yeah, we've often lamented that because if we were geographically closer, we could conceivably, our styles mesh up in some wonderful ways, and it'd be fun to just like have a collaborative project for both of us to work under. Maybe someday.
Yeah, well, we can, here's to hoping.
Yeah.
Alrighty, for our last question for you guys before we wrap things up here. I would like to ask you guys, is there any message that you'd like to share with either your fans or something you'd like to say to the Brony fandom?
I guess the only thing I want to say is, guys, don't take this too seriously. We're all in this to have fun, and if you're not having fun, you're not doing it right, in my opinion. Like, look at the subject matter we have here. Like, I'm doing this because I love it. I'm doing it because I'm enjoying myself. I'm doing it because I'm learning. I'm meeting some great new people and getting some great opportunities. And I'm just like, every time like people tell me that they're just like appreciating what I do, and I get messages in my inbox all the time from people who are like, I heard do this such and such a song, and it made me want to draw a picture. And like, this is really like a wonderful, positive, collaborative spirit that the whole fandom seems to like just like really like has like taken on and made its own. And that's like what I really, really love about it. That everybody's just sort of like, we're all sort of like, like there are webcomics artists out there who listen to Wooden Toasters, who listen to Glaze, and like incorporate that into the webcomics. And then like there are musical artists who read the webcomics and like get inspired to do better because they're realizing that other people notice them. It's just like my main piece of thing, my main advice, I guess. My main shout out is like, don't lose the spirit of collaboration and teamwork, and don't forget the spirit in which the fandom was born, which is love and like all positive feelings. Because I've just seen people get really petty and really negative in this fandom, and it's just really disheartening, and it makes it really hard for other people who are just here to enjoy the cute and colorful and the wonderful, beautiful things that are here. It makes it really hard for those people to just kind of like enjoy the fandom, and it makes it really difficult for people outside the fandom to take us seriously. I mean, not to say that they maybe should take us completely seriously, but like if they see a fandom that is divided, and they see us bickering and being petty and taking ourselves too seriously and being too like caught up in our own stuff to really get along harmoniously, then what weight does love and tolerance even hold? So I really think we need to make sure we keep taking that to heart, and we keep making sure that everything we do is in that spirit of just like being silly, being fun, but being loving and tolerant at the same time.
I guess my message, probably more musically and just like kind of not really based on the fandom, but in terms of making music. And it's going to be really trite and cliche to say it, but I guess don't get discouraged, because whatever you felt, I've probably felt it too. Keep making stuff. Don't stop making stuff. At least, fit it in your schedule where it makes sense, obviously. But, you got to keep like exercising it. The more you do it, you will get better. It's a fact. I've seen it because I've done more work now than I have probably in the past decade. And that's really the thing. Like it's hard. None of it's ever easy, especially making music. I mean, if it were easy, you'd probably see a lot more of it. Well, I guess we do. We see a lot of it because we happen to have like the most talented people ever just condensed in one area.
Yeah, for whatever reason, it's like one of half the people in this fandom. I mean, yeah. Anyway, go on. Sorry.
But no, I mean, that's the thing, because I'm fortunate to have like the kind of feedback that I've had, and probably the most heartfelt responses I never dreamed I'd have. And I would be content if if this was it. If this is as far as I went. I got farther than I ever thought I could. So, but keep doing it. Keep practicing. Keep releasing stuff. Eventually, it'll get better.
Exactly. Nothing worthwhile is easy.
Put it this way. As I've done this for a really long time, so it was like there's many times where I wanted to just quit.
There are times when I did quit. Remember?
There was a time when I quit too. Like there were periods in my decade of music where I thought I would never do it again.
Bro,
it's really trite. I feel like everyone says what I said, but I can only say it because it's true.
I'm reaching across the country and I'm hugging you right now, man. I'm just like.
So, we're wrapping things up now. Thank you, everybody, for listening and tuning in to Equestria Inspired. This has been a wonderful, epic interview with d.notive.
Good night, everybody.
And zahqo.
Have a good night.
Thank you for listening, and have a good night.